are, Brattleboro's community talk show. I'm Wendy O'Connell. Here we are in the middle of winter, looking for things to do. And what's coming up is the Harris Hill Ski Jump. Harris Hill is one of Vermont's 10 top winter events. And as president of the Harris Hill Board of Trustees, Pat Howell, who is with us here today, is currently in the eye of the storm for the jump's 100th year celebration. A lot of stuff going on for this. We're going to talk to her about this exciting event, as well as Pat's connection to France, which brought her interesting careers in travel. And here in Brattleboro, where she and her husband, Mel Martin, owned a successful marketing business for many years. Welcome, Pat.
Thank you, Wendy.
Yeah.
It's a thrill to be here with you.
Well, not as much as a thrill as the ski jump is going to be, I hope. Yeah, this is very exciting, and I'm so glad that you're on the show and we can talk some of the details that people don't know so much about, as well as a sneak preview of the book that's coming out, that is out now.
It is out, yes.
Big book for celebrating the 100 years of the Brattleboro ski jump. So we're going to hear all about this. You grew up in Delaware.
I did.
Yes.
I grew up in a village on the outskirts of Wilmington, Delaware, that was founded as a single tax community by a leftist economist named Henry George, and his followers were called Georgists. But the key for me in growing up in that community was that the philosophy that it embodied focused on community life and the outdoors and arts and crafts. Open spaces were called greens, where we could play softball. An intricate web of paths through the village were called lanes, and we could ride our bikes through the lanes, and a creek where we all learned to swim. It wasn't a swimming pool, it was a creek. And the bohemian nature attracted a bevy of intellectuals. Upton Sinclair lived there, as did Harry Kemp, the poet, lived in Arden. The woman who invented Monopoly grew up in Arden. Anyway, it was a wonderful place to grow up, and I'm guessing that my love of the outdoors, my love of Vermont, my love of arts, the arts, and probably my nonconformist leanings all stem from my childhood in Arden.
Your family, your dad was a writer.
Yes, he fashioned himself a writer. He didn't earn his living as a writer. He earned his living in PR and radio.
A radio too, yes.
As well.
And your mom was a teacher?
My mom was a school teacher.
Yes. Did you have siblings?
I have a brother.
A brother. Growing up, you were very influenced by your French teacher at a very young age.
I was.
Hence your love of France, I believe, came from that.
It did.
Yeah.
It did. I had a wonderful French teacher from 7th grade who, when you walked into her class, immediately, not knowing a word of French, no English was allowed. And we learned we learned to think in French. And I fell in love with this. It was also easy for me. Languages came easy.
Very soon out of college, you got a really interesting job in Washington, D.C.
I moved to D.C. where my college roommate was living. She was a flight attendant, and I said, I've got to find a job. Started scouring the newspaper, the Washington Post, and saw a little ad for the position with the Tunisian Embassy, and I ended up being offered the job of secretary to the Tunisian Ambassador to Washington, which was a fabulous experience.
Oh, I'll bet. And you're like in your early 20s,
I was,
right?
I was.
Incredible.
It was really wonderful. I was there during, this definitely shows my age, but I was there during Eisenhower's funeral, which you can imagine presidents and diplomats from all over the world came to Washington. And it was quite, Tunisia was high up in the hierarchy of countries that Eisenhower was fond of, and that were close. And so Tunisia got to sit in the front of the cathedral when in Eisenhower's funeral. And I had the incredible experience and privilege of arranging diplomatic dinners and receptions and escorting the president of Tunisia, Habib Bourguiba was his name, to the funeral. I mean, it was an unbelievable experience.
Yes, and I'm sure you've got a lot of stories about it.
I do.
Yes. Any quick ones you could share with us?
My favorite one, Wendy, part of my job was to organize diplomatic dinners that were held at the embassy residence. And this one was in honor of the Shah of Iran. Now, this was the Shah. He was not such a good man. He was very handsome and very charming, but politically, his deeds were not good. He was the guest of honor, and there was a reception line for the dinner, where you walked through and you introduced yourself. And my crazy roommate, who was the flight attendant, had said to me, "Pat, this is a big event. You have to have false fingernails so that your hands look good when you're shaking hands." I had never worn false fingernails in my life, Wendy. And as I reached out to shake the hand of the Shah of Iran, he accepted it graciously and squeezed it so hard that many of the fingernails on my right hand ended up in his. And I saw my life pass in front of me. My ambassador that I worked for was standing next to him. And I just saw this huge passing of my career. And what seemed like forever in time, they both burst out laughing.
They did. Oh, that's wonderful.
And the Shah of Iran said, "Young lady, I believe these are yours."
Oh, that's a wonderful story. That's great. Wonderful that they laughed as well.
Yes, it was.
Good that they had a sense
Oh,
of
yes.
humor. So who was president then? Was it Johnson?
It was.
Johnson,
It
yeah,
was,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. So that
yes.
was my
It was right
guess.
in the middle of the Vietnam War
Man,
era.
what a time to be there, Pat.
Yes,
what an
it was.
amazing time.
I'm blessed, Wendy. I've had wonderful jobs, fascinating jobs. I feel really very, very fortunate.
Yes.
My first visit to Vermont, I fell in love and said to my friends, what do people do who live here? I want to live here.
That's a really good
beautiful.
question back then, too.
Yes, it was.
How did you end up in Brattleboro?
My husband got a job at the book press.
Ah, yeah.
And it was New Year's Day, 1983. We moved to Brattleboro. How my career started in Brattleboro was through my volunteer work with United Way. I figured that I didn't know it. I didn't know anyone, and I had volunteered for United Way in Burlington, and thought, I guess I'll volunteer here as well. It's a fabulous, United Way. No one can argue with the work they do, and so I did, and I got to know a lot of really important, wonderful people in this community,
Yes.
and became really good friends with many of them.
Was that your entree into the ski jump?
No, it wasn't. My entree into the ski jump was looking for someone who would find them some sponsors. It was growing, they needed money, ticket sales were not covering all of the expenses. And I was recruited, if you will, to find some sponsors for the for the ski jump. And I said I'd do it on a business, as a business deal. And then I realized that everyone with the ski jump was a volunteer. And I finally said, forget it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm on board. You got me. I'm hooked. This is a great, great little organization that is now significant. And you know, interestingly, we get this question often of, in fact, I had it the other day from a reporter who didn't, who said, "Can you meet me at the Hill? I'd love to see it and have you introduce me to it." And he said, "Is there a competition? Is there jumping this weekend if I came?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, when will there be jumping before the competition in February?" And I said, No. There is only one weekend a year that Harris Hill is used for ski jumping." And he said, "Why is that?" And I said, "Because we're all volunteers, and when you put on a 3-day tournament, or 2-day tournament, excuse me, as an all-volunteer organization, at the end of that 2 days, you don't have much energy left for anything else."
Right. Just to start giving a shout out for the book that's come out. This book was, again, a big labor of love. Many people involved, many sponsors, many people volunteering time. It's fascinating. There are so many wonderful photographs, historical photographs from the beginning days, which was 1922. It's 100 years now. And just great stories. You know, Fred Harris was a real force of nature. And he, in 1922, he started Brattleboro Outing Club, which is still alive and well and thriving today, and the U.S. Eastern Amateur Ski Association, and the hill itself for a cost of $2,200. And we'll get back to that when we talk about the renovation, which occurred in 2005, which was a little more than that. Off the top of your head, can you think of any little stories, you know, that stick out for you in these many, many years of Harris Hill?
Of the competition?
Yeah, I think, you know, a couple of things that I ran into, like in 1927, there was a flaming hoop. And so a couple skiers went down the hill, and I think it was a man and a woman, and through the hoop and into the jump. And
there are a number of stories that we uncovered in researching the history
I'll bet.
For the book.
Yes.
That just reflect both the ingenuity, the can-do spirit, and actually some breathtaking, underlying, courageous, if not stupid, jumping.
Yes.
So yes, the flaming hoop.
Yeah.
They also did what they called rapid fire, which in this day and age would never be allowed for insurance reasons, where jumpers went off through one after the other in a rapid fire. And you think, well, what if one fell? What would happen to the other two, or whatever? But nobody's thinking that. And one of the fabulous things that you see in the book are photographs of the 20s and 30s, where people, mostly men, are up in trees looking over the hill. That was their spectator spot.
Yes, right.
And I think to myself, oh, that would never happen today.
There are so many wonderful stories and fun facts about the ski jump. One is that they've always welcomed women. And in 1938, it was the first year that there were women in the competition, which is kind of a cool thing. I believe that they were two sisters.
Two sisters, Dorothy Gray and her sister, whose first name I can't remember. And they did compete. They were disqualified because they had not. They were not members of the.
They weren't registered or something.
There was a technicality. Dorothy came back a few years later, and she was the fifth in line out of 22 jumpers.
Wow. That's good to know that Brattleboro was ahead of its time, because women were not in the Olympics, the International Olympics, until 2014.
That's correct.
So this is really saying something. So the ski jump has been going along for many, many years, and in 2005 it becomes obvious that the structure itself needs renovation. You were on board for that as well, and I'll bet that was a bit of an endeavor.
Over the course of years, an outdoor facility of this nature is subject to, that's made of wood, is subject to deterioration. And it had deteriorated to the point where it was unsafe. The committee launched a major campaign to rebuild the hill. We had engineering done. We had a plan, a design for the hill, and went about the fundraising to make it happen. And the Step Up and Soar campaign was a local effort. It was, we held a telethon on BCTV to raise money. We raised about $275,000, as I recall. And we're looking at a situation in Brattleboro at a time when there was a lot of fundraising happening. The hospital was doing a major campaign, and a lot of other organizations were involved in capital campaigns of significance. And we were advised that we probably weren't going to reach our goal, which was, I think, around $500,000. That said, we couldn't let it die on our watch. That just wasn't going to happen. And so we persevered. I did the great story, if I may.
Please.
Digress and tell you a wonderful story. It's a fairy tale story. At the time that we were realizing that we had tapped the community pretty thoroughly, and were advised to maybe that maybe this wasn't going to happen after all. And I think that coincided with a press release that I had written that said, Harris Hill won't be happening this year. We just need to raise a little more money, and maybe next year. And that was picked up, not in those exact words, but that the gist of that story was picked up by AP, the Associated Press. And so it landed in other newspapers in New England. It was picked up by one of the trustees. It was read by one of the trustees of the Manton Foundation, which is based in New York City, a private family foundation. And their inquiry led to me. At the time, I was in France, and I got a phone call that was from the foundation's offices in New York City, saying, I represent the Manton Foundation, and they would like to know, almost to the exact words, Wendy, if they gave you the balance of the money you needed to build Harris Hill, could you have a tournament this year? It was November. And I held my breath for a moment, which seemed like forever, and said, no, we couldn't possibly build a new structure and hold a tournament in February. But will that jeopardize their interest, the interest of the foundation? The long story short is it did not. And the Manton Foundation ended up funding the remaining amount needed to build the hill.
Out of the blue.
It was a fairy tale come true. We were sitting there not knowing where we would turn next. Where could we possibly turn to get this done?
Well,
and the town, the local community had been so generous to this point. It was amazing.
That's so wonderful. And so you had it the following year. So that
we did.
You were back up and running in, what year was it?
2009.
2009. One thing that's changed over the years also is the trophy. Fred Harris somehow, for the first trophy, had Cartier, the very famous jewelers, design the trophy that's changed over the years, but he must have had some kind of connection with it.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Can you imagine the connection? It is a stunning trophy, and we're hoping to have it here. Dana Sprague, who is our historian, is working to get all of the trophies that have been retired back for the 100th celebration.
Oh, great.
But the detail of the Cartier trophy is
Yes.
just
I'll
magnificent.
bet, yes. I did read that Sandy Harris, who is Fred Harris's daughter, designed the most recent trophy, too.
She did. She also designed the one that was retired in 2020 by a Slovenian, Blas Plavic. But she's in the process right now of designing the new one. We're looking forward to Sandy's design and to whoever's going to put the first leg on this new trophy.
Yes, exciting. I read this great sentence, and I believe Kevin O'Connor wrote it, I'm not sure. And I pose it to you as a question. What's your warmest memory of the coldest day at Harris Hill?
My warmest memory of the coldest day, I'd like to turn it a little bit.
Sure.
I've been involved with Harris Hill Ski Jump since 1986. Every year, when the tournament happens, it doesn't matter if it's the coldest day or a warmer day when we know the jumps are not going to be as spectacular because it's too warm. It doesn't matter. My fondest memory or feeling, and it's powerful, is standing at the base of the hill when the jumpers are called out one by one to the outrun by Peter Graves, who is a professional announcer. He announces at the Olympics and is a local boy, a local man. When Peter Graves belts out the names of the jumpers and then introduces the young woman who's going to sing the national anthem, and I look up the hill and the national anthem starts to play, and I can feel it now. The pride, the sense of pride and achievement and accomplishment that all the people who make this happen must feel as well. That's the moment. That is the most cherished,
that's wonderful.
special moment.
Yes, yes.
I can feel it.
I can feel that you're feeling it. Yeah, I know. There was a great quote, I don't know if I have it here, that Fred Harris instilled something in that jump that was contagious. It inspired people to give years of their lives to it, to keep it alive.
Oh,
And, you're saying
great.
the same thing. And, another thing I think that's remarkable about the jump is that there's so many families, who have different members of the family over generations at these jumps. And it's such a big part of our community. And I do want to mention that BCTV has been live streaming the jump for quite a few years now. And
that's right.
we don't have the exact numbers, but we think it's around one of the last year, obviously there was no jump because of the pandemic, but it was 30,000 viewers for one of these tournaments. And this, of course, now is international. There are people from all over the world coming to Brattleboro, Vermont for this ski jump to either be participants or to come and view it. And so it's yet another really interesting thing that Brattleboro is on the map for. And
it truly is.
Yeah.
It's a truly a celebrated Brattleboro tradition that is part of the fabric of this community and beloved in this town.
Yeah, it is. There are so many folks involved, and again, volunteers. And we would love, between you and I, we would love to give a list of these people. But we just can't.
It would take way too long.
Yeah, and we're afraid that we would forget somebody. So, however, Pat has a beautiful paragraph from the book itself that I think says everything.
So this is the dedication of the Harris Hill ski jump, the first 100 years. And it says, "To the legions of volunteers, the planners and pluggers, snowmakers, packers, groomers and plowers, the starters, the scorekeepers and meter markers, ticket takers and parkers, announcers and anthem singers, photographers, designers, publicists, EMTs, and everyone else not named but always necessary, who give their time, their energy, and expertise to make Harris Hill the iconic, beloved Brattleboro tradition that it is. We dedicate this book to you with boundless appreciation." I love it. I love it.
Beautiful.
It's so true. There are so many hundreds of people who in this community who turn out on the weekend.
Yeah.
And then a whole nother group of people who work year-round
Yes.
to ensure that it continues.
Yes. This year, the ski jump is February 18th through 20th. There's an extra day this year. It's the Friday before the weekend. So can you tell us a little bit about that? It's called the Target Jump on Friday night.
Well, Friday night we'll be hosting our first night jumping. We have lights that have just been installed, courtesy of the hard work of Alan and Sally Seymour, and the lighting poles donated by Consolidated Communications. We've never had night jumping at Harris Hill. And in commemoration of to celebrate the 100th anniversary, we will be jumping. It will not be competitive jumping, it will be exhibition jumping. And that'll be for fun, not for points and style. And it'll just be a fun time. We will paint a bullseye on the hill, and the jumpers will try to see how close they can come. And the winner, of course, is the one who's closest. It'll be fun.
That's great.
And we are sharing this evening celebration with the Brattleboro Outing Club, which is also celebrating 100 years.
Yes.
Of course, because Fred Harris, who started Harris Hill Ski Jump, also started the Brattleboro Outing Club in the same year.
Yes, yes, that's exciting. So there's an extra bonus this
Yes.
year. So February 18th through 20th, folks, that's Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. It's always, pretty much always Winter Carnival week here in town. So Pat, thank you so much.
It's been so much fun.
Yeah.
As you can tell, I love talking about the ski jump.
Well, we could talk a lot more.
Yes, we could.
We could talk a lot more. There's so
Yes.
many stories. So in saying that, I would so encourage folks to go to your local bookstore, Everyone's Books, Antidote Books. I'm sure that also some of the outlying independent bookstores up in Bellows Falls and Wilmington will be carrying this as well. Get a copy of this book. It's so much fun to read, and it's just so cool to see all of the photographs and how much has changed just from the skis themselves to what people are wearing. And yes, so please come to the ski jump. We invite everybody, and it's going to be a great time for everyone. Thank you, Pat, for joining us.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Please do come. This is a momentous occasion, the celebration of 100 years of ski jumping in our community.
Yes. Thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate our audience as always. It's wonderful. Again, the ski jump is just not only a great event in all the ways that we've talked about, but it sure breaks up the winter, which is something that we can always use here in Vermont. So thanks again. We'll see you next week.